doing a quick study on women in the Exodus and women in the census, and how that plays out from the bad report from the spies. When all the Israelites go into at Mount Sinai, or they left in the Exodus, they were then counted, and there was a first census, and that included all the military age men. So if, let's assume that you went in the Exodus and you were 90 years old and were not able to be a military man, you were not counted in that Exodus for that census, unless you were a Levite. And Levite is in Numbers 3. The census for everyone else is in Numbers 1. That's important for a number of reasons, but I'm just trying to play things out and put down the background first. Levites in Numbers 3, from 1 month until death, as long as they were walking around, they were counted in the first census. Whereas in the second census, which is Numbers 26, it's the same requirements. Military men and all Levites from 1 month old, all the way up to whatever. Were any of the men alive from the first from the first census to the second census? And the answer is, at the time of the second census, there were 3 of them alive. There was Moses, Caleb, and Joshua. Moses died shortly thereafter, which left only Caleb and Joshua. Now, where do we get that? We can see that in Numbers 26 and verse 65. Everyone was dead except for Moses, Caleb, and Joshua. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. And again, the report from the spies was in Numbers 13, and we've got Exodus 14, 29, 30. That's where the Creator said, everyone who was counted in the census will not enter Israel except for Joshua and Caleb. That's a key term, everyone who is counted. Those who are not counted could still walk in and still go in. And you could say, well, who would that be? Well, if you were in the tribe of Levi, everyone over the age of 1 month that was counted, but that's where in the second census he said, for those who are 20 and over. And he said that when he did this, okay? 20 and over. So otherwise the entire tribe of Levi had to die. But those who are young, those males who are younger than 20, they got to go into the kingdom. Now, if you are in the tribe of Benjamin, and let's assume that you are counted in the first, you would have been counted in the first census because you're male, but you were 93 and had a broken leg and could not be in the military, did you have to die? Almost to a man, everybody would say, yes, they did. Everybody had to die. If you were 20 years old and older, you had to die. That's not what the Bible says, and I think I can prove that. So let's prove that. And we can prove it from Sarah. Sarah is mentioned twice in the Torah. She's mentioned, the first time is in Genesis 46:17. Sarah went into Israel. She was the daughter of Asher. Numbers 26:46, Sarah is mentioned with the second census. I want you to think of what that means. At the time of the second census, Aaron had already died because Eleazar and Moses were doing the count. Now, I've heard different reports on when that second census was. Maybe it was 38 years in, whatever. It was before Moses died, and after Aaron died. The Israelites were in Egypt for 215 years. That means Sarah was 215 years when she left Egypt. Add to that 38 years, 39 years, whatever, the time frame from the first census to the second census, because she was still there. I am almost willing to bet she was one that went back into the land. If he's going to keep her alive for 200 and what's that work out to? 253 years. You don't think he let her go another year to let her go into the kingdom? I think so. Don't say that I know that, but what we do know is in Numbers 26, when she's counted that second time, it said everyone had already died except for Caleb, Joshua, and Moses, who was still there, who was going to die thereafter. But it said everyone else had already died. So Sarah had not died at that time, and it said everyone else had died. So it indicates at that point in time that the women, because they were not counted, they didn't have to die. Now they could have, again, if they grumbled against the Lord, I can just about guarantee you from the way I read that passage from the Creator, where he punished them, if they were grumbling, they died. So it doesn't sound to me like Sarah grumbled. And how many other people were there like that? Again, if you weren't counted to the military, you could still go. Now, you didn't magically join the military. You weren't 96 when the first census was done, and now you're 136 in the second census, and all of a sudden your leg's just feeling good. Now you're going to be part of the military. So, you're not going back in from the old side, but that doesn't mean you have to die. And that's an interesting point. And again, this is a real quick thing. It was just something to think about. And again, think about what that means for Sarah. We only have the age of one person who died, and that is the wife of Abraham, who died, I want to say she was 128 off the top of my head when she died. We have Sarah, who was a daughter of Asher, who was basically pushing 250 years that we know of. And that far outstrips that age. And I'll just throw this in there. We also have Anna the prophetess, who was there at the time of the Messiah, who was also of the tribe of Asher. And we don't know how old she was, but we do have some indications that would put her certainly in the hundreds. Was she older than the wife of Abraham? I can't say. But she was pushing some upper limits. And again, the question on that is, when did she get married? Did she get married for Anna? Was she 13 when she got married? Was she 25 when she got married? It doesn't say, so we can't add it. But we have to kind of put that number with the math. Again, just something interesting, that some of the women could live a good distance of time. And this is when men weren't living that long. We had pretty much knocked out the long lifespan for men at this point. That was Genesis, early part of Genesis, where they're really pushing a few hundred years old, and yet Sarah, the daughter of Asher, just says, 250 years, I can do that. When the men are pushing maybe 120 at best, and she's pushing 250, that's a statement.